Sorry, I was just taking a moment to look over my list of what this pandemic has changed in my day-to-day life, and it's a kind of short list. Yeah, but you're not here to worry about this list. You're here because I happen to have this actual list, which is why PlayStation 2 was the best. 30 reasons why. This might take longer than I thought. After a partnership with Nintendo failed, Sony decided to release their own game console entitled the PlayStation in 1994. This console also received a redesign later in its life, but I own the original because that's what my dad bought. Considering this was my dad's console and games, I don't own too many of them. Only 6, in fact. The game cases for these were really interesting too, as they used the instruction manual as the box art. At the time I thought this was kinda cool, but then you try putting it back into the case and realize it's incredibly annoying. Like I said, I think it was cool, but there's just these grooves on it and these little metal or plastic nubs that you gotta fit it into, and it just gets super frustrating. Even with these interesting choices, I still think that this system was absolutely fantastic, and gave way to an even better console down the line. I know you're probably looking at the video title and saying, why the hell is he using this to describe everything and not the original PlayStation 2? That's just because so much from this console translated over to the PlayStation 2. Unlike Nintendo and the 64 and GameCube, where it was, what the hell is this thing? And then to, why weren't you doing this before? Enough about Nintendo, let's talk PlayStation 2 that was released in March of the year 2000. I gotta say, besides more modern consoles, this is probably the one I have the absolute most time on. I love this thing. This was actually the first system that my family owned brand new as well. The standard controller for this system was the DualShock, the first controller to have dual sticks as well as clicking down on them to use buttons. Granted, the PlayStation 1's controller was basically just the Super Nintendo controller with thighs, but I still think that the DualShock 2 was an even better design than that one. It just seems to work perfectly with the system, and even though the Xbox 360s would be seen as the absolute best controller, I still think this one was great. We then move on to the memory card, similar to that of the Nintendo GameCube. Younger me thought it was a good idea to carve nostalgia onto the labeling point on my 8MB memory card, so good job, younger me. I did indeed look back on these. However, this is not the end of my story for this console, because then I did this. I regret nothing. As I mentioned a bit ago, I owned a slim version of this console, which was incredibly confusing when I went over to my cousin's house and saw what was essentially a phone book sitting under the television. Yeah, for the time I think the size made sense, but it just looked so much like a VCR that I feel like if you put it next to an old VCR player, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the two. This didn't really matter, as both systems were able to be backwards compatible with PlayStation 1 games as well as play digital DVDs, but I never really used it because my family already had a good DVD player at the time. I remember the first day that that thing was plugged in. My dad got everything set up, and then the first game that we put in was a... Well, I guess he never exactly had a great taste in games. Monster Jam on PlayStation 2. No, trust me, it actually did happen. Just because this sounds like something you'd find in a $5 bin at a Walmart doesn't mean that it was bad, though. It had some cool modes, some unlockables, everything that was on most games at the time. Even though this was the first game on the system that we owned, I actually didn't play this one too much. I played more on its sequel known as Monster Jam Urban Assault, which in my opinion improved everything wrong with the game at the time. Well, enough talk, let's pop this into the system and see how many memories I have with this one. Oh yeah, I remember this title screen. This game improved on practically everything. Not only was the new UI and everything much better, there were some new modes that I thought were absolutely fantastic. None of the unlockable modes seemed to be too terrible, and everything seemed to be at a fair price, if you know what I mean. Except for the one quest where you unlock frickin' Outlaw. After playing Urban Assault for long enough, this is the point in time when me and my cousin essentially went, "Whoa, is that a racing game?" This is the point in time that me and my cousin really got into the Need for Speed side of games, and if you think that Forza Horizon is better, you know where the door is. My cousin and I unlocked literally everything you could in this game, and it wasn't the only racing game we played, but it was the one that most of us spent all our time on. I remember times being up at like 3 in the morning passing the controller back and forth because of how annoying it was. I apologize if these reviews aren't all they're cracked up to be, but I don't want to bore you with just racing games or just Monster Jam games or something like that. However, if you're going to pick up an older Need for Speed game, I suggest Carbon with a burning passion. I love this game, and I still play it from time to time. Gran Turismo 3 was also really good, and I picked it up at a rummage sale for like $5, and definitely not that one. Let me ask you all a question. Why were there so many Spongebob games on PlayStation? If anybody in the comments can tell me if there's more than 3 Spongebob games on PlayStation 2, I would love to hear it. I just happen to own 3 of them, all produced by THQ and all running on the same game engine. The first one I'll talk about is the Spongebob Squarepants movie, which is the real title it was given. I think this one is the most unique of the three and adds its own mini-games as well as adding some driving sections that were pretty interesting. Out of the three games, I think that this was about the second best, but it doesn't even hold a candle to the best one on the PlayStation. This game may have been pretty good, but I still think it doesn't even hold a candle, as I said, to this game, SpongeBob Battle Bikini Bottom. I got this for my birthday one year, and I absolutely think it's amazing. However, that will be a video on its own, as I will be splitting up the rest of this into 3 separate videos talking about my 3 favorite games on the system. However, then we have SpongeBob SquarePants Lights Camera Pants. What a title. This game was well, it was a game, alright. This one was a bit different than the others, also known as it was literally just a minigame collection. That's it. What, did you expect me to say anything else? There's nothing awful about this game, it's just comparing it to the other two shows that there's so much to be desired, like the free roaming in Bikini Bottom and the multiple different sections in the movie. It's good for what it does, that's all I can say. Well, at least I was right to assume that this would take longer than I expected. However, you can't even talk about PlayStation without mentioning Crash Bandicoot. But, once again, it would take way too long to explain. So, I don't even know how many parts I'm going to break this up into. There are so many games that I find absolutely amazing, and I don't really know what to do. Alright, I think I know what we'll do here. Since I was just talking about it, we're going to start these next 5 videos out with SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom. Then we'll move over to Crash Wrath of Cortex, Ultimate Spider-Man, SmackDown vs. Raw 2011, and finally, Bionicle Heroes. We will also talk about some of the extra things that I used with the console, like, oh Jesus, get it away from me!